Diversity has completely lost all meaning. It's become an all-encompassing term, which means the total destruction of the Western world and all of its values. Thanks to the concept of social constructs, measuring real differences among certain groups has become evil and archaic. In 2006, then president of Harvard, Lawrence Summers, was forced to resign for coming up with a hypothesis that different availability of aptitude at the high end may be the cause for women being underrepresented in tenured positions in science and engineering at top universities. This was one of 3 hypotheses he came up with, the other 2 completely non-controversial. And this so-called controversial hypothesis is strongly backed by consistent findings regarding male-female IQ curves. Male-female IQ curves consistently show that while more women have an average IQ of about 100, more men lie at the extreme ends. This means that more men have a high IQ of around 120 to 140 than women. This would explain why there are more men than women in top positions in science and engineering fields. And, like gender, liberals even more desperately try and deny the biological differences amongst races. James Watson, a renowned biologist, was also forced to resign for recognizing biological differences in IQ. He remarked upon the lower intelligence of blacks, and as a result was forced to resign from his position as chair of the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory. Philip J. Rushton set out to South Africa to disprove that African blacks have an average IQ of 70. For reference, an IQ of 70 is about typical for a sufferer of Down syndrome, and even low for a typical sufferer of Fragile X syndrome. This professor has very good talks on YouTube. He didn't want to believe that despite these numerous studies, that the IQ could truly be so low in Africa. He wanted to believe, like many in academia do, that this discrepancy came from some sort of unfairness or faulty measures in the testing. So he set out to South Africa to test carefully selected black students from a top university in Johannesburg in highly controlled conditions. The result was a median IQ of 84, that being a standard deviation above the mean, which is typical for university students, which just further proved the consensus that Africans do indeed have an average IQ of 70. For forcing individuals in academia who support well-founded, evidence-based, and easily observable information into resignment in favor of liberal sycophants promoting PC ideologies which ignore all objective truth, there are a myriad of so-called diversity commissions which drive up the cost of tuition in order to support ridiculously overpaid and inane positions. Last year, the University of Arizona hired 2 applicants for a single diversity position, stating that both applicants were just too good to pass up. They now receive a combined salary of $429,000. These councils and commissions generally host a number of staff, all receiving 6-figure salaries. Academia is continuously finding ways to degenerate higher education into leftist indoctrination cults used to fund a collection of white guilt-laden, middle-aged liberals compelled to instill their anti-white, anti-traditionalist, and anti-free-thinking ideologies onto the younger generations. One study, published in 2007, discusses the ways in which a diversified society is negatively impacted by their diversity. These include a decline in trust and cooperation as the community disintegrates and people isolate themselves. With the leftist goal of destroying the family unit combined with the destruction of community, there comes to be a society with no cohesion or ability to defend itself. This is clearly the state for much of Europe, where law enforcement continuously covers up and conceals statistics and crime regarding refugees. This study predicted the large influx of immigration in coming years, and goes on to state long-term positives from when migrants finally assimilate. This, though, is clearly not the case, as Arab migrants identify as Muslim over the nationality of their country of birth, even generations later. And the belief that refugees will somehow help the economy of the countries they are living in, despite nearly 2/3 of them being illiterate in their own language, is just ridiculous.